Yeah, that's really interesting because we run into some of that ourselves. Obviously, at PFF, we give one number, right, the overall grade,
Right.
but we always say like the grade is not. You can't use that and just say this guy has a higher number, therefore you draft that guy over the other one. You need to start going deeper. You need to look at it in
Yes.
situations. You need to look at the composite, like where the facets break down. So yeah, I wonder if it ends up becoming a way of sort of quantifying what type of player each individual quarterback is and actually creating not necessarily building an offense around him, but like understanding where the mistakes or the big plays come from. We've always talked a lot about Jimmy Garoppolo and how he has this weird tendency every now and again to just not see a linebacker, right? To just
Right.
toss the ball right to a linebacker in the middle of the field. And maybe the S2 test is the kind of thing that can start to actually flag that kind of thing as a potential weakness in this guy's game, and there are some play concepts we might want to steer clear of because they're exposing him to more of those types of opportunities.
That is exactly right. That's hitting the nail on the head. We don't want to get pegged into thinking a guy can't do something. We don't purport to predict Hall of Fame starter, those kind of things. We're just trying to give these clubs a picture
Right.
of what these guys can do really well and what they struggle with. And I think a good example, the best example I have for that, because it's fairly simple, is in baseball. So our impulse control task is the best predictor of major league chase rates. And I think historically, front offices and coaches have gone to visual training. Oh, they can't see it. They can't see the pitch. Well, when we looked over 4,000 pro hitters, it fell out to about 50-50. About 50% of guys could not process the visual details of the pitch or the hand that was tipping off, hey, this is a slider. But the other 50%, they could see it just fine. They could not control their motor system. So, we've all been in those situations where you're actually swinging the bat saying, oh my God, I can't believe I'm swinging at this, right? It's a slider in the dirt. You just look so fat coming out of the hand, you can't lay off of it. But until you get sort of a cognitive evaluation or picture like this, you don't really know why that athlete's struggling. Again, like quarterbacks, we can all see the effect of a bad decision. We don't know what led to that decision. Why did that quarterback make that decision? And so, like you said, it may not be like, hey, here's X quarterback and here's his cognitive profile. Now we need to create an entire system around him. But you can sort of structure, hey, we're going to limit the number of plays that force this athlete to do this versus this is what he can do really well. A good example on quarterback play is we have a test of improvisation. We all see those quarterbacks who can just, first read is done and man, they're flying. They can find an alternative quickly. They're scrambling. They're changing their arm angle. They're dumping to somebody else versus the rigid quarterback who first two reads are gone, dancing, taking the sack. Well, if you know that about a quarterback, you can sort of build around that.
Yeah, I mean, it ends up becoming a tool that has a bunch of different applications, right? It's got that ability to kind of quantify what type of player this is and maybe sort of create some tweaks here or there in the offense or even build personnel around this guy to suit his strengths and his weaknesses. But it also is important, I think, as a tool to help bridge that gap in the NFL draft specifically, which is what we're getting to now, which is like, let's still find the best quarterback, right? And
Yeah.
obviously that Athletic article brought up some kind of case studies and some specific names, like Brock Purdy's the guy that's been talked about a lot as scoring extremely well in this test and obviously came out of nowhere as Mr. Irrelevant and then led the 49ers, and that offense got better when he stepped in. Drew Brees was another guy talked about as having incredibly high scores in the 90s. Joe Burrow as well. I think Josh Allen was a name thrown around. One point I just wanted to bring up is when we sort of throw these abstract numbers out there, scores in the 90s, your scores are essentially percentiles, right? So
Correct.
they're percentiles up compared to pro athletes, not compared to like me, right? So when a guy's
It's
being talked
compared
about,
to our database right now is 3,600 NFL prospects. And so it would be that 3% of college athletes that have declared for the draft and have gone through that process. And so when you get a percentile rank, it is compared to those players. So, I think in the context of, hey, this is a low number, of 50 is an average
Right.
NFL prospect. That guy is getting drafted. he's going to be on a roster. So low numbers are, again, it's just all contextual. It doesn't mean a player can't play.
Yeah.
It just means that he's going to have more areas that he's going to struggle with than others.
But it also throws into some kind of context and clarity. The low quote unquote numbers are basically average numbers in that peer group. But when you're pushing your numbers into the 90s, we're talking about like all-time rare, freakish, occurrences. Like a 95th percentile amongst NFL prospects is nuts. I mean, these are the outliers that we've been talking about on the last couple of shows physically from, these guys that are complete outliers, 95th percentile running a 40, 95th percentile doing the vertical jump. These are 95th percentile players in terms of cognitive ability relative to all these other prospects.
That's right. And just like any other metric, and that's why I want to, sort of be clear about this. Like, we're not saying this is the holy grail by any means. Just because you're at the 95th percentile, look, we've had just as many guys score 95 that have never seen a snap in the NFL, right? Because we're measuring their cognitive capability. I'm sure there's tons of receivers that have run under 4.4 that have never seen a snap, right? And so it all has to put together. If you have an elite brain but are 5'6" and can't throw more than 35 yards, it doesn't matter. So you've got to have sort of the complete picture. These guys that you're listing off, the Drew Breeses of the world, yeah, they've got it all. They've got the cognitive piece, they've got the psychological makeup, they've got the physical skills, they've got the mechanical and technical skills, and they've got the game experience. All of those things make up a pro athlete. So yeah, absolutely.